And welcome to the broadcast, and thank you so much for joining us on this World Cup weekend around the country. Today we take a hard look at one of the most important institutions in Prince George's County, right here in our backyard, our public school system, and our superintendent joins us, Sean Joseph joins us today. Welcome to the broadcast. You know, the thing I'm wondering about is, what do you believe are the three greatest challenges facing Prince George's County and its education apparatus today?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Number one, funding is definitely an issue. You know, we must make sure that we're investing properly in our students. Second, I think family engagement. You know, we've got to get families reconnected to our school system. Third, we've got a tremendous amount of English language learners in our district. 40% of our students are multilingual learners. And we've got a large special education population, and we've got to make sure that we're doing all we can do to make sure those students meet the high standards that are the Maryland standards.
You know, it's interesting because Prince George's County is one of the largest school systems in America. How do you grade the current state of your district, and what metrics matter most in that evaluation?
Yeah, so Prince George's County is the 17th largest district in America with 130,000 students. You know, I measure growth. So one of the things I did, you know, I was a professor at Howard University in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, so I'm a data person. And one of the things I did when I walked into the system was to ask the question, are students making adequate growth? Are they making at least 1 year's growth in that time? So we did statistical analyses and found that students, in fact, make 1 year's growth. The challenge we have is we have many students, like I said, who are multilingual learners or are behind. So 1 year's growth is not enough to hit standards. So we don't have a remediation problem in Prince George's County Public Schools. We have an acceleration imperative. We've got to figure out how to know where kids are and move them faster if they're going to hit standards. But that has significant impact on how we do our work, and that's the work that we've been doing over the past year.
You know, parents often hear about budgets, reforms, and strategic plans. What tangible improvements not only should they look for in education, and why is it that some parents prepare their children better than others? And what are those ingredients in that preparation that makes has a huge impact in the child's educational experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, research from the 70s holds true today. There was something called the 7 correlates of effective schools. Is the school safe? That there's a strong instructional leadership? Are parents engaged? Is there a climate of high expectations, a clear vision? How are you using time? And what do you monitor along the way? Those are the things that all school systems can control, and the degree to which they control them and monitor closely, we see outcomes. What I find in Prince George's County, you know, our greatest challenge is variance. We've got some of the best schools in the country that are ranked on test scores, and we've got some of the most challenged schools in the country in the same community. And what we must do is figure out the leverage points, the pressure points where we put resource, time, energy on to move the schools that are not performing well to be better, to try to get to where our best schools are.
Well, you know, what you're speaking of now is accountability. And obviously it is a major concern to you. But how do you measure success, let's say among administrators, principals, and teachers, and what happens when those goals are not met?
I measure success on being clear about where a kid starts and how fast are we growing them, and how do we improve. You know, we've got to have a rate of growth faster than 1 year's time in Prince George's County. So the question becomes, you know, what are we resourcing in schools to give kids that competitive edge? You know, I say, you know, weighing a pig doesn't make it fatter. At some point, you got to feed it, and you got to be clear about what those things are. And for us, it's parent engagement, it's having high quality curriculum, it's making sure kids have the tools and resources, and parents know where their kids are, and when the kids aren't doing well, what's our individual plan for the child, but then how are we working with parents to encourage parents to access the resources that we pay for to move students forward. You know, we have a $3 billion budget, so I'll never make an excuse and say we don't have enough resource to get better outcomes. But sometimes we don't coordinate those resources, and parents and students don't access those resources consistently beyond the school day to really accelerate.
So, the question I asked you earlier about the role of parents, I think you missed the larger point that I was actually getting at.
Okay.
And that point is, when I was growing up,
Yes.
we didn't have social media,
Yes.
the internet. We had to go to the library.
Yes.
Our parents read to us.
Yes.
We read to our parents.
Yes.
We had to read books.
Yes.
We were evaluated, re-evaluated. So there was literally no gap by the time we got to the classroom. In fact,
Yes.
we were ahead of the curve because of parenting.
Yes.
What is that like today, and how important
Yes.
is that role?
We are in a crisis in America, I believe, when it comes to parenting. We don't see, in many communities, we don't see parents spending time with their children, keeping them off of the social media, keeping them off all the technology, and just helping them engage socially and helping them engage academically. Getting them reading, getting them in the the early requirements. We have found that children who go to preschool, for example, in Prince George's County, do substantially better than students that do not. But we only have about 40% of our students that engage in preschool. So many of our students enter our buildings in kindergarten never having read a book, never having had someone read to them.
Is it an affordability issue? Is it a lack of knowing issue why they don't go to preschool?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of affordability. I think it's a combination of access. I think it's a combination of, we have auntie or grandma taking care of the child, but not putting them in an environment that is academically stimulating to have them prepared. And our standards in Maryland in particular are extremely high. You would be amazed at what we expect a kindergartner to be able to do nowadays.
But you said something, the stimuli. Kids learn different. One size don't fit all.
Yes.
You've got to make an effort to get to what it is that brings out passion for that child.
Yes.
To learn, engage them. Some people need music.
Yes.
Some people need sports. Some people can do it through books. But some kids need a different kind of inspiration to sort of open up that portal for learning.
Absolutely, and I think this is where when we talk about culturally responsive learning, we've got to meet the needs of children and families, really understand the cultural nuances that exist, and give them the supports and the conditions to grow at accelerated rates.
So let me challenge you.
Okay.
In the state of Maryland,
Yes.
you have two highly funded systems, okay? And they are the least functioning school system. Why?
Which school systems are you referring to?
In Prince George's County.
So in Prince George's County, our funding is not the highest in the state. Actually, if you look at us and you look at Montgomery County, for example, just this year I cut $150 million from my budget and received an additional $20 million from the county. Montgomery County received $143 million additional dollars and cut. I believe that they cut $39 million, but there's a $300 million difference in 1 year between the counties that sit right next to one another. That will manifest in different outcomes if there isn't sharp leadership, and we in Prince George's County don't make sure every dollar is maximized in terms of a return on investment. But there are differences in the relative affluence. We're fortunate to be in a state where our state does fund schools well. I think our state does what they're supposed to do. Actually, 58% of the Prince George's County budget comes from our state. and about 33% comes from our local dollars here, which is different from other places.
What about, we're fortunate growing up, and you don't realize it until you see the educational collapse today, is that not only were we in school, we had to take what you would consider to be an elective, vocational school.
Yes.
Whether it was carpentry, welding, that you learn a different kind of skill just in case the classroom is not for you. But there
Yes.
seems to be less emphasis on that today.
Yes, well,
and that's tragic.
Well, in Prince George's County, every one of our comprehensive high schools has a CTE pathway. And it's one of the areas of focus in our new strategic plan, which we're calling Forward by Design, where we're intentionally ensuring that students have access. I just met with Employ Prince George's yesterday. The new CEO is Latera Harris that's coming on board. And we talked about, Prince George's County has lots of new economic development happening. There are going to be hundreds of technology jobs and things, and we need to make sure that our children are prepared. So we need to better work with our community colleges, our technical schools within the buildings, and other workforce development entities working with industry to get students prepared. So we're working on plans to get students beginning in 10th, 11th grade to get the skills that they need, both soft skills and technical skills, to go do those jobs that are going to be there for them, that are high paying and can provide a good quality of life.
Before I say thank you for joining us today, I think it's so important that you also tell the good news of what you do well as a superintendent. You've been on this job
Yes.
for a year now. Where do you think you've made your greatest strides?
Yes, I've worked hard to build relationships with our unions, with our parents, with our central office folks. Academically, we've reduced vacancies in Prince George's County by 52%, the largest in the state. We have focused on improving special education. When I came into Prince George's County, special education was in corrective action over the course of this year. And it was in corrective action because we had over 280 vacancies and we had lots of complaints to the state. Now we have less than 80 vacancies and we've had much fewer complaints, which are resulting in us being ready to be taken off of that corrective action in 1 year, which was pretty significant. We've increased the amount of students having access to dual enrollment programs. So now kids are graduating in all of our high schools. They can go get college credits, which will reduce the financial burden for those students that seek to go to college. And we're working right now with Bowie State University and Prince George's Community College to ensure all kids in all 24 of our high schools have that same access. So we've worked to attack access and to give kids more opportunity because we live in a great community with tremendous resources, but those resources haven't always been coordinated. So it's not about more money, it's about better coordination.
Quickly before I say goodbye to you in about a
Yes.
minute, tell us about finding the Joseph within. I love the fact that you strong reference to God and faith
Yes.
and working you through the journey. I think it's it's just wonderful that you get back to the Creator.
Yes, I wrote a book called Finding the Joseph Within to remind people that God has never blessed somebody he hasn't hurt deeply. We go through stuff to get to stuff. And this book is about my journey from being, growing up in poverty to being the first black superintendent in Nashville, Tennessee. Not talking about all the successes and all the awards and things I've had in life, but being a reminder of the people who've helped me move forward, like the biblical man Joseph. But we have to always remember that pain and time give us wisdom.
I had to skim the book because you gave it to me as we were coming on the set, but it's obvious to me that you believe still in a moral and religious education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I believe one of the challenges we have in America is that we've walked away from God. And I think we always have to acknowledge who we serve and be humbled by that and recognize that, the greatest gift we have is our ability to serve.
Well, it has been an honor having you on today, speaking directly to the people of Prince George's County and in the DMV. And I wish you well. And I wish you well with
Thanks,
your
sir.
book, Finding the Joseph
Yes.
Within.
Yes.
I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. Joining us now is Terrence Clegg, who is a parent first and then a community education advocate. How many kids do you have?
So I have three, ages 10, 9, and 5.
Are they in the school system?
And all three of them are currently in Prince George's County public school system, and we intend for them to continue to matriculate and finish there.
As a parent, what have you learned from your kids about the educational system?
I could write a book, but I've learned a lot. I have 2 special education learners, so the biggest thing I've learned is that every kid doesn't learn the same, and so just meeting the kids where they are. I think education has to be like that. It has to meet the kids where they are. One kid I had took off reading. The next one, we really had to sit down with him. I had to take him as a father once a week to the library and just sit there and drill with him and bring books that really, resonated with him.
To bring him to life.
Yes, to bring him to life.
Yeah.
And so
and it did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it did. Here's what's fascinating. What have you learned from your kids and you and your wife being involved in the educational system about the teachers and the administrator?
I have learned that it takes everybody at the table, right? I think we have some really strong teachers and some amazing teachers in Prince George's County. They don't always necessarily have the work environment. They don't always have the utensils, the tools, but that's where we as the parents have to step in and obviously, be at the table. And so that's one of the things that I'm really focused on in my run for Board of Education is making sure that parents have a seat at the table and that we are culturally competent and we can meet the parents where they are so that we can make sure that, everyone has their voice heard when it comes to the
you
kids.
would not be running for Board of Education if you did not feel, as a parent first, you want what's best for your kids. When you're running for education, you want to make sure your kids are fully prepared as much as they can for life. Unless you felt that there were deficiencies, there were things that could be better. What are the weaknesses that you've discovered that it seems they just cannot correct?
So there are a number of them. I mean, like I said, with 2 special education learners in my household.
Go deeper into 2 special educational learners in your help, because that's a whole different bar that people don't talk about it. And the system doesn't seem to be kind to kids with special needs.
Right. So for me, my daughter at a young age did not verbalize and talk the way that the other 2 did. Right. And then my middle son is autistic, and so. In finding that out, I'm blessed that my wife is a psychologist, so she was able to kind of see the signs, but I think a lot of our special education—
They don't see it.
Educators, it's not that they don't see it, it's that they have such a big roster and so many things that they're dealing with at once that it's difficult for them to pay the particular attention to our kids that I would desire them to. And so for me, being able to navigate the special education system has been great for me because, yet again, my wife is a psychologist. She can see things directed, and we're there at the table, right? And so I think more about the kids who don't necessarily have that as an opportunity, whose parents are working 2 and 3 jobs, and who may not be seeing the signs. And so I want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody, the services that my kids are
So
rendering.
what crystallized and became the impetus for you when you decided, I got to run for the school board?
So for me, wanting a father's perspective on the board, looking at
What do you mean a father's perspective? A father's perspective is not already on the board?
Not currently. So
what do you mean by it's not there?
So what we have now is we have some wonderful education experts, people from all different backgrounds, right?
All women?
However, no, we have men as well, right?
But you said you don't have a father's perspective.
No, we don't.
I'm not understanding. You got to educate me.
So what I'm saying is that we need a father who has kids in the system at Prince George's County, in Prince George's County Public Schools, to be able to, who has that investment, that level of investment.
Life experience.
Yes, that life experience to be able to have an opinion on the board and have a seat on the board.
So what do you hear from other families across the county? That's what's missing. And also, do parents feel their voices are genuinely being heard by the school system, or is still it seems like a trust gap?
Right. Well, what I'm hearing from I'm glad you asked. What I'm hearing from a number of our community members is that again, education has to meet the kids where they are, and not only that, a lot of our schools don't have PTAs or PTOs currently, and so we want to make sure that one of our biggest
Parent
goals,
Teachers Association.
yes, parent teachers associations or parent teacher organizations in general, where the parents can have that seat at the table and have their voice
But
being
that
heard.
doesn't make sense. It seems like they would have that.
No, not all of them. Not all of them have it for various reasons. Sometimes you have a strong administration of leadership in a PTA or a PTO, and that leadership moves to a high school or something like that, and there's nobody there to accept the mantle and continue to move it along. So those are all things that we want to work on, making sure that there will be a pipeline of leaders who will jump in and be PTA and PTO leaders going forward.
Now, so you're running for the school board. We hear people finding a reason, an angst, or whatever you want to call it, they decide to run. What kind of change do you realistically you think you can bring that's not already there? What makes you think you can enhance it?
Right. Well, our school's new superintendent just released a big strategic plan, right? And so for me, I want to make sure, the strategic plan looks wonderful. I want to make sure that we hold them accountable to that. We invest, over $2 billion in our education in Prince George's County. And I want to make sure that our schools and the quality of our schools match that investment. And it doesn't take a dad to see that. However, a dad, I see it in my living room every day. Our teachers are reaching out to us, needing supplies, needing wipes and things that keep the room clean, just from anything to try to make sure that those funds and the things, and especially we've had great Senator Alonzo Washington, who has pushed for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in my district, and I want to make sure that the Blueprint for Maryland's Future reaches the classroom so we can see teachers, great teachers brought in, retained. We want to make sure that our schools are adequately safe. We want to make sure that our early childhood learners have somewhere to go, even starting at age 3. We want to make sure we have after-school programs so the kids are involved.
To
in
reinforce,
things.
yeah.
Yes.
But you said something. I'm looking at you as an example.
Right.
Strong two-parent household, present, and yet your kids could still struggle in the school system.
Correct.
As involved as you are, what about the kids that don't have parents, or the kind of adult advocacy that you have for your kids as their parents? What happened to these kids?
I think of the same thing all the time, and that's another reason why I reached out to all my supporters to say, hey, I think I want to jump in here and run, because there are a number of, even in my neighborhood, I find talking to parents who don't necessarily have the resources, the two-parent household, some of the things that I have, and I want to be there to be able to advocate for them, because, like you say, too many things slip through the crack, and we want to make sure that we meet them where they are. Again, cultural competence is a big thing. We have a lot of multilingual learners in District 2 where I'm running. So we want to make sure that everything is culturally competent and meets these students where they are, so that the parents can be more involved, the students can learn in a way that is tailored to them, and we can reach great outcomes.
So you're here on a station, you're running for office. I think it's a wonderful thing. If you are elected, if there's 2 things that you could change immediately, what would they be?
So again, the first one is the parents have to have a seat at the table. So
Other than what you mentioned.
Right, okay, so two more. Definitely I want stronger support for our special education
Disabled
learners
kids,
and kids with disabilities. I want to have a pipeline where teachers are encouraged to enter that as a profession, special education, because special education teachers are really in need, and that's something that we need. So that, and if I had to choose another thing, I would think it would be that we can fund the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, to make sure that the things that we have pressed for in our Senate and in our at the state level, that the money directly goes where it belongs.
Well, there's no question you're committed. You're sincere, and you're determined. Why? Because you have more at stake, because you have kids in the system.
Exactly.
And you refuse for the system, that educational system, to fail your children.
Exactly.
And you must be present. And not only present, if it means you have to sacrifice, because it's a sacrifice, to run for office, that's exactly what you would do as a parent. I wish you well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Terrence Clegg, I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. And welcome back. Maryland State Senator Alonzo Washington is joining us. You know, Senator, you know, parents are increasingly worried about violence, bullying, and disruptions in schools. What concerns are you hearing from your constituency, and can the legislature do anything to change the trajectory of youth violence?
Well, thank you for having me on your show. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here and to see you again. So, you know, our parents, and what I'm hearing from parents every single day is that our school system needs to move with a sense of urgency, whether that's special education or truancy, delinquency, or just high quality education. And so what we're doing at the state level, one of the bills that I passed a few years ago was about mental health, ensuring that students have access to high quality behavioral health services. So all of our community schools within the state of Maryland, and we have over 100 in Prince George's County, have a behavioral health specialist that's funded through the Blueprint for Maryland's Future from the state. That's also a community schools coordinator that's going to be in that same school working in tandem with that behavioral health specialist to make sure that behavioral health and mental health services are offered to students on a case-by-case basis throughout our county. Our job as legislators is to make sure that the school system, like Dr. Joseph as a leader, have the resources that he needs and the guidance from our State Board of Education, as well as the state, to make sure he has all the tools he needs to provide high-quality education and to drive down violence, because violence have been decreasing recently in PGCPS over the last year.
How has the learning environment changed? How do we adjust to it and improve upon our scores in testing, especially in reading and math proficiency?
Yeah, right now we have about 30,000 students of our 130,000 students that are in PGCPS that are on the cusp of at proficiency. And so we're moving our way towards it. If we focus on those 30,000 students that are currently in our school system, provide them with the resources, and we just rolled out a literacy program that's going to be throughout the entire county. There are select schools that we're going to be choosing from the state that will have those literacy coaches at each school in the county that we're going to select. But right now, I'm actually sitting on a literacy panel with the superintendent that the county council put together, and they asked me to join them to make sure we have more literate students in our school system. So we are on that cusp of just getting there. If we can focus on those 30,000 students that are falling short due to the pandemic and the academic achievements that they have not been able to accomplish yet, I think we're going to be just there. We're not going to be. We're just there. We're almost there, and we're going to make it for all of our schools.
Why do you think residents feel that they must leave your county for economic opportunities?
Let me go back to your previous question, because you asked a really good one, and it was about what I think is some of the distractions that happen in our schools. That's why a lot of our students aren't getting better or aren't achieving. And one of the things that we did as a legislature is ban all cell phones in
It's a good thing.
in the state of Maryland.
Right.
So you cannot come in the school with a cell phone. It's from bell to bell, cell phones are banned for all schools. So that's a really great first step. That's going to reduce violence, reduce social media interactions, all those other things. And another thing that I heard from parents is about how their students right now are in front of a laptop or a screen way too long during the day, where they're not having that interaction that they need with the teacher. So we're actually going to be looking at that. I'm actually working with Dr. Joseph and his team to develop any potential legislation that's needed to drive down the screen time for students so they can excel. And that's why we need parents to still invest here. And that's why I asked Terrence Clegg, who's running for school board that you just had on, to run for this position, run for school board, because he's a parent, he understands the voices, he has 3 kids right in our school system, and he's making that investment. He is ready and willing to work for our school system as a parent, to send that sense of urgency, to send that message to parents like his who are middle income families, that PGCPS is a great place to raise your kids, great place to educate your students. And that's what I plan to do with me and my wife. We have 2 young kids. We have a 1-year-old, my little boy, and a girl who's 3. And we're looking forward to joining Terrence and his family in our school system. I'm choosing PGCPS, and I'm asking all our families in our school, in our county, to choose PGCPS.
Not a question about economics.
It is a question about economics. Look,
And why people are leaving, and how do you get them to stay?
Reframe your question.
Okay, so residents feel they must leave the county for economic opportunities.
Got it.
How do you stop that?
We have to stop it. Look, we just had the attacks from the federal government and Trump on reducing federal jobs. A large percentage of our workforce in Prince George's County were dependent upon federal jobs. Now we have to pivot, and which is what we're doing through our county executive and us, to making sure that we have tech jobs in the county. We are the quantum center of the East Coast, where we have quantum jobs in Prince George's County. We're focusing on tech jobs, building them. We're also focused on workforce development opportunities for our families to grow into different sectors outside of government. And I think if we continue to attract jobs, attract businesses to Prince George's County, our families would choose it. I would love to see the statistics of families that you know of that are actually leaving the county to go for economic opportunities, because we have them here in the county, those economic opportunities for families.
So here's a interesting perspective for you. How do we ensure development benefits long-term residents rather than pricing them out of the communities?
And I think that's a great question. You know, one of the things that we're focused on, which we have a policy that we passed at the state, was focused on transit-oriented development around our stations, but also making sure that there's high-quality, affordable, mixed-income housing at those stations. We have over 16 metro stations in the county, and we're actually going to have the Purple Line that's going to have another 12 different stations. We want to make sure that the development that we've already zoned, to make sure that there's mixed income housing there, so our seniors don't get priced out, so our families, our immigrant communities don't get displaced from these locations. We have protections in place already, and we're providing incentives to developers so that they can then provide affordable quality housing to residents that are in need.
You know, you've been in the legislature for 13 years.
That's correct.
What frustrates you?
That's a great question. What frustrates me is that we are not moving with a sense of urgency to provide high quality, world-class education to our students. I think every day, no parent like Terrence Clegg, he cannot wait. His students are in the special education system, and he cannot wait for the school system to get better, to get out of this situation that they're in with the state through special education. We have to move with a sense of urgency to provide the resources that his family needs so he can stay in our school system.
So what is it then that you can do better?
Right now, our school system is going through a corrective action. That's because of the state's policies that we put in place to correct those things that the school system isn't doing. For about 2 or 3 years, they had over 300 vacancies in special education. Because of Dr. Joseph, he helped close that gap. That's what we can do. We put them under corrective action. They're now going through an audit. I actually received that special education audit just over 2 weeks ago, and I'm actually going to be reading that, and we're going to be meeting later this month to determine what we can do for the upcoming legislative session to support our students and our families like Terrence Clegg.
You keep referencing Terrence.
Yep.
Because he's a parent, and
Correct.
it's very relatable to you.
Correct.
And as a parent, you'll do whatever is necessary for your child to get the best education. Why not a stronger embrace of choice in education?
What do you mean? I mean, we have charter schools in our county. We have the second largest outside of Baltimore City. We have the charter school that's in our school, that's in my district, College Park Academy, started some years ago.
So you see the value in that?
I see the value in that, absolutely. And I think the problem that I hope that Dr. Joseph is going to resolve is that we're not using the techniques and the innovations that they have at a College Park Academy into our general population students in our traditional schools.
You know, in my role as an owner of the Baltimore Sun, and I write editorials sometimes, that I think that disciplinary policies have become too lenient, too punitive. Or if you're educating me, is the problem more complicated than that?
Yeah, our students come in the classroom like me. Look, I grew up in poverty, was raised by a single mother of 8 kids who only had an 8th grade education. I was the oldest of those 6 kids. And I came to the school system with trauma. But our school system wasn't ready for someone like me, someone like our students that are there every day that don't know what they're going back home to. School for me, like John H. Bain, where Senator Joanne Benson, who I serve in the Senate now, was my principal at that time. And they didn't have the services that I needed at that time. So for me, this is about ensuring that those parents have what they need in that classroom, and that we're making sure that we're not over suspending our students and locking them up for nonviolent offenses.
So let me separate that, because this is a learning moment for me.
Sure.
What about those, what you're saying, 90% of them will get it. But what about the 6 or 7% that continue the repetition of the same crimes over and over again?
Yep.
Shouldn't they be punished? Because they've shown some just don't have the capacity to change. And they become a menace not to only society, but very disruptive to the classroom and to education and to communities.
Discipline is important. Discipline
Yes.
is important. And when the kids are repetitive about their circumstance or whatever they've done, I think it's important that we have restorative practices for them, have extra resources for them. But if you're violently making violence towards people, there's expulsions that are already available. The system has those things to capture those 6 to 7% of those students already. We're talking about the 90% that we don't want to be the 6 to 7%. So we're already expelling students that are violent offenders, or there's things in place for them already. We want to make sure that 90% that you referred to have the high quality education that they need, and make sure they have restorative practices. Because what we learned is that if you send a student out of the school for nonviolent offenses, they're going to end up in the school to prison pipeline. And we don't want that. We want restorative practices for our students, and we want to make sure we're making sure they're staying in the classroom to learn, because that's what they're there for,
But
to
I
learn.
think the most important message, as we say, and thank the Senator for joining us, what were the pivotal points in your young life that forced you to make that change? Because that's what these kids need to hear.
Yep.
Because they're going down a road of destruction. But something changed. You had an epiphany. What was that?
My mom. My mom raised me to be a great man, raised me to be a great young boy, and my mom passed away some years ago. And so what I do today is paying it forward because of what she's done for me and what someone named Joe Fisher has done for me through mentorships, through understanding, through opportunities, sending me to college when I was in high school, and giving me opportunities to grow and to learn.
But you had to make a decision to learn.
Absolutely.
You had to make a decision to sacrifice. You had to make a decision to push away from crime and
Yep.
behavior that was no longer becoming you. You had to make that choice.
I
No
did.
matter what your mother poured into you, you had to make a decision.
Oh yeah, I knew what I wanted as a young person. I wanted a better life than the circumstance I lived in. I promised myself I would not be a product of the zip code that I grew in or the environment that I grew up. I lived in low-income housing, and I grew up in poverty. And so I made sure that I was going to be the example to my younger brothers and
But
sisters
you did not
to
have
be
poverty
successful.
of character.
No, I did not.
And that's important.
Absolutely.
Poverty can mean many things, but you had a mother that poured right and wrong in you.
Correct.
And so you could always find your way back to the path of what it takes to be successful, as you are today,
Yeah.
as someone who's been in the Maryland State Senate for 13 years.
Yeah.
And we congratulate you and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
It's a
for
pleasure
joining
being
us.
here.
It's my pleasure. I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. Candace Perkins joins us now, who's a parent and community education advocate, and she's running for office as well. How do you describe the relationships between parents and the public school system now?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure.
So parents and public schools should be partners. I'm a parent of 3 PGCPS scholars. 2 are still in Prince George's County Public Schools. Our oldest just graduated last year from Prince George's County Public Schools. My husband and I are both products of Prince George's County Public Schools, so my passion and understanding of not only being a process of the product, but actually being impacted as a parent is really personal for me. And when you think about what the relationship between the school system and the parent is, it should be a community of communities. It should be the partnership. It should be the communication. It should be the accountability piece.
Share with our audience, because you have 2 honor students, and I congratulate you.
Thank you.
What is it that you and your husband had to do to make sure that that school system did not fail you, not only as parents, but fail your children as well?
Well, you have to experience it, first of all. So you can't represent a system without understanding it and being impacted directly. So our 2 younger sons initially started out as nonverbal in Prince George's County Public Schools. So they went through the early childhood education process as such, and then graduated into normal schooling, where they're now in charter schools. Our oldest daughter didn't have any minimizations or anything. So she was able to just matriculate based on her independence. So when you think about what our household culture was, it was reinforcing what we grew up on, right? So we read to our kids at night. We created story times. We had less digital, right? Because nowadays everyone has a device of some sort. We wanted to making sure that we worked on the basics as far as writing and literacy and understanding how important it is to not only be able to write, but to be able to articulate your thoughts so that when you go into your classroom, you're walking into it, whether you're a kindergartner or a senior in high school, as a leader. That is important. And then for us, it's also about reflecting, right? How was your day? We had those conversations at home. And even though we have a first grader now, right? So we have a first grader and an 8th grader. We still have those conversations because they are our future. And if we don't understand where they're currently at, especially as parents, we can't be able to advocate on their behalf. So when you ask, why are you running for the Board of Ed, and, what makes you so special? It's because I understand. It's because I live it. And this is really personal for me. And the development of our children is what will help us in the near future to be able to develop our society.
Where is the system fractured? Where does it need repair?
Communication and accountability. We have a lot of great information in Prince George's County Public Schools. I sit on the PCAC board, which is a Parent Community Advisory Council. And so each month we have presentations from different department leaders in the community. But what I'm always saying consistently is that there's some really great information, but parents don't know how to access that information.
So what are the biggest barriers? Because it seems that you and your husband don't have it, in keeping parents from being directly involved with the school?
Time, understanding of their roles. And some people get to a point where they're frustrated with
and tired.
Yeah, and they just check out, right? So they feel like, just go to school, just have it, just let them do it, let me go make the bacon. But my stance and my husband's stance is, you're equitably important in that communication and collaboration, and you are a part of that ecosystem. And so we need to bring that back to Prince George's County.
But what I'm hearing from you, Candace, which I think is important, is that it's not just enough for the district to prepare your child for careers.
You have to.
You, as a parent,
Yeah.
must be involved in preparing them for those careers, for trades, for military service,
Absolutely.
in college. Because if not, that child will not maximize that experience. And you have to make time.
Yes.
Because those kids did not ask to come into this world.
Yeah.
And you have an obligation to give them your best. So you make the sacrifice for now.
Absolutely. And the reward is their success. So for us, or for me especially, my mother did the best that she could, right? And that became the baseline, the floor right?
But that was not good enough for you.
But that was not good
I
enough.
can tell. Yes, I can.
But it gave me the opportunity of possibilities, right? I took what I had.
You had a foundation.
Correct.
Yes.
And what I wanted, and then I developed that, right? And then my husband and I, we came from two completely different backgrounds. But what we align in,
Around the kids.
yes.
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 Now, something's important here because you hinted at this, and I want to follow up on this. What role should technology and artificial intelligence play in education?
It should be a tool, but it should not be the teacher. And what I mean by that, technology is our forefront for the future, right? However, we also need to make sure that we don't abuse technology to the point where our kids are not thinking for themselves anymore. They should still be able to read, write their own essays and books. We need more future authors in this country, and we need to make sure that we...
Thinkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Founders.
Yes.
So you believe in civic education.
Absolutely.
Why is civic education so important?
Because that's where you get the history of the foundation. That is where you understand your challenge. That is where you understand your charge to be able to grow, to develop, and build and align, and that's actually a part of my plan.
You know, when the superintendent, Sean Joseph, was on, he mentioned morality.
Yes.
Talk about teaching kids morality, character, values, sacrifice, discipline, respect for elders.
It starts at home, right? So even though our kids are at school for 6-7 hours a day, we as parents in our community, and it's not just the household parents, it's the community around our kids, have to be leaders and example setters of that program. We have to make sure that each and every scholar understands that their value is not just what they outwardly present themselves, but how they carry themselves. It's important, it's the foundation. It's what makes you and I successful to this day as adults.
What is it, tell us what it does for a child's self-worth and self-esteem when they are honor students, when they accomplish something, they achieve something, they realize everything that their parents have been saying to them, they realize it in the classroom. And there's a lot of pettiness among kids, a lot of jealousy, and kids are threatened by success because they consider them to be nerds. But those kids understand they're on a path to something greater, and they must prepare themselves. But what is it like when that child achieves, and everything that you poured into it, you begin to say, oh my God, it's paying off?
Yeah, and to be honest, both of our children are not honor students. Our oldest has taken the ring and created his own version of that, right? And so when you're talking about what it means to be an honor student or just a student in general, right? It should reflect your level of pride. We should make sure that all the resources that the scholar needs to be successful, from special needs to, building our future engineers and everyone in between, they have the access to be able to do so. So for me, honors isn't about a certificate.
Okay.
Honors to me is about that child being at their max capacity, that child forwardly thinking of, well, what can I do that's next? What can I do more? Keeping them engaged in the education system.
So why did you decide now that you need to seek public office?
Well, I just finished my term as the PTSO president at Frederick Douglass High School, serving on 2 other local boards as well as for the Prince George's County Literacy Commission. So for me, this is personal. This is a reflection of our household of 3, but the reflection of 132,000 scholars in Prince George's County. It is my duty to continue to step up and elevate my voice on this next level. And I know as the next District 9 board member, I will continue to do that part. It's one thing to do the work in the community, but your work should be reflected without you saying your name. And for me, this is personal because I know that our future is in jeopardy, and I have to make sure that I step up to be a conduit to making sure that we have resources, advocates in place to support those in Annapolis and on the legislative level and on the community level, because when you talk about why not? And also for me, I am what I call a plug. That's what a board member is. They're the liaison. They link all of the community entities together to get the job done. and it is a passion that I've had for almost 20 years. And as a product of Prince George's County Public Schools, I know what we could be and where we can be. I am a product of it, so I know it can be great. And I know with me being the next District 9 board member, that's going to happen.
So the one thing that all our guests have in common today is that they're parents. And when you're parents and you have your children in the school system, it becomes not a job but a mission.
Yes.
Because you're not going to allow anyone to rob your children and to destroy them of the opportunities and the possibilities in America. I thank you.
Thank you.
As I've said to the other guests, I wish you well. We need more people like you running for office. I'm Armstrong Williams. Thank you for joining us, and join us for the next edition of the Armstrong Williams Show.